Hello everyone, this is Talking Hands. Today I wanted to do something different. I know almost everyone has already seen Top Gun Maverick. If you haven't, this video will contain a lot of spoilers, so I recommend you watch it first. And I just recommend you watch it anyway, because this is a great film. One reason I love this movie is because they put a lot of little details that I think a lot of people would not notice or know the significance of. So here are the Top Gun Maverick details you probably did not know. Okay, this first one's an easy one. In this opening sequence, just like in the original Top Gun, they are showing the real aircraft carrier crew doing their thing and not using actors. In this scene and in the scene at the end, the aircraft shown here is called a P-51 Mustang and was a fighter plane during World War II. This particular P-51 actually belongs to Tom Cruise. Here, if you have sharp eyes or you're watching at home in composite, you can see a picture of the character Penny, played by Jennifer Connelly, showing that they've had a relationship in the past off screen. On his calendar, you see a mention of Skunkworks. Skunkworks is a nickname given to Lockheed Martin's advanced development programs, and they are famously responsible for aircraft such as the SR-71 Blackbird, F-117 Nighthawk, U-2 spy plane, F-22 Raptor, and the F-35 Lightning II. Of course, since the character is Korean military, he properly uses 24-hour time format. Also on the same calendar, I've seen a lot of reaction videos where people don't understand what Mach 9 refers to. The word Mach refers to the number of times the speed of sound, so Mach 9 would mean 9 times the speed of sound. Looking at what days the dates on this calendar falls, it would suggest the movie actually takes place in 2019 or 2013, more likely 2019. This plaque shows that he's been a captain since at least 2006, so going by the calendar showing this to be 2019, or well, likely 2019, he's been the same rank for at least 13 years. I've seen a lot of YouTube reaction videos and reviewers who seem to misunderstand this point and think that he was never promoted since the events of the first movie, but actually in the original Top Gun he was a lieutenant, as you can see here, and I believe it was mentioned throughout the film. So he has indeed been promoted since the events of the first Top Gun, but it's just the length of time he has spent as a captain without any further promotions that likely results in all the shade thrown at him about his lack of advancement. Now, this one I see pretty much every reaction video that shows this part doesn't understand what's happening here. And the fact they put this in the movie is pretty cool for that exact reason, in my opinion. Basically, what I hear most people comment is that he's getting in shape to be able to handle the G's. At this point in the movie, there have been no mention of G's, so not really sure where this comes from for these influencers. Maybe they watched the promotional material for the film which mentioned G's for the later scenes. The test flight he's doing for this part of the film won't involve a lot of G's since he's basically traveling in a straight path and a very wide gradual turn. In fact, what this scene is showing with him on the treadmill wearing that mask is what real high altitude pilots do prior to their flights. So when a pilot flies at extremely high altitude, the atmospheric pressure up there is a lot lower than it is here. The cabin would be pressurized, but they can't realistically pressurize it to full pressure at sea level. It's still very thin inside the cockpit. His suit is also slightly pressurized, but also cannot be fully pressurized because then it'll inflate like a balloon because of the difference in pressure. And it would be very difficult for him to manipulate the controls when his arms and gloves are completely inflated like a balloon. So he runs a risk of suffering from decompression sickness. That is when the nitrogen in your blood and tissues turn into gaseous form while in your body, which is no bueno. So what real high altitude pilots like U-2 spy plane pilots do to mitigate this is that for an hour or so prior to the flight, they will breathe pure oxygen to try to flush out the nitrogen from their system. They would also exercise while doing this to help further absorb the oxygen into the muscles and to flush out more nitrogen. That is what they're showing here. He's wearing an oxygen mask, breathing pure oxygen, and exercising, just like real life high altitude pilots do. I feel like most people wouldn't know this, so it's neat that they put it in the movie. Small little detail of Maverick holding his breath while they seal his helmet. Here on his suit, you see a little winch. Real high altitude flight suits actually have this because if the cabin suddenly loses pressure, the pressure difference between the suit and the cabin would become great, and the suit would inflate like a balloon. The winch helps pull the helmet down so the pilot can actually properly see outside of the face shield. Here you see Hondo is holding onto this box, which is also realistic. It's a portable air conditioning unit to keep the pilot cool while inside his flight suit when he walks towards the aircraft, since the suit is sealed off. Once inside the aircraft, though, they would disconnect him from that portable unit and he'll be hooked up to the plane's internal air conditioning oxygen system. Notice the Skunkworks logo on the tail of the aircraft. You also see it on the joystick, and you see the Lockheed Martin logo as well. They paid real Lockheed Martin Skunkworks engineers to design this fictional aircraft. I love this because even though it's a fictional aircraft and doesn't need to fly, they wanted the design of it to actually make sense so that the few people watching the film who might actually be familiar with how aircraft works and aerodynamics would not instantly spot an obvious design flaw in the aircraft that would make it unflyable, like so many other fictional aircraft in the other films. This just adds to the immersion, even though the majority of people might not even have noticed if they had not gone that extra mile. So they went that extra mile for the minority of viewers, just like so many other details in this film, which I really appreciate. In fact, the aircraft design was so believable. I've read that it fooled China into thinking it was a real advanced experimental aircraft, so much so that they retasked some of their satellites to take a better look at the prop that they made of it for the film. Also notice the drinking port on the helmet.
Attention on deck!
She yells attention on deck instead of simply attention. That is something specific to the Navy and the Marines.
When did you get in?
Oh, I've been here the whole time.
I love how Bob starts off very quiet and reserved to openly insulting Handman to defend Phoenix.
See you in the afterlife, Bagman.
This maneuver I think is called the defensive spiral and usually would rely on who has the plane with a tighter turning radius, but both planes are identical, so it kind of leads to this stalemate. That maneuver is called the Cobra.
And that Cobra maneuver of yours, that could have got all three of you killed. I never want to see that again.
And the fact that Cyclone calls it out specifically is some foreshadowing that you will indeed see that again.
The hard deck is 5,000 feet above ground.
Cyclone chewing him out for breaking the hard deck is probably a callback to the original Top Gun, where he was chewed out for the same exact thing on his first day at Top Gun.
The hard deck for this hop was 10,000 feet. You knew it, you broke it.
Here, Maverick is referring to the fact that the majority of air-to-air encounters in modern times are beyond visual range. The art of dogfighting has actually become sort of a dying art.
Planet, Captain.
And they've been told that their entire career, while they've been dropping bombs from a high altitude with little to no dogfighting. Never encountered
Okay,
something
you have
of it.
less than 3 weeks to teach them how to fight as a team and how to strike the target.
And how to come home. And how to come home, sir.
Warlock actually gives Cyclone a very "he got you" look right there, hinting that he's definitely on Maverick's side on this. Notice the Gadsden flag on the wall here in the bar. That's a symbol commonly used by the Marines. Amelia barely pays Maverick any mind. That is until it is time to throw some shade at him for still being a captain.
Captain? Still?
A highly decorated captain.
Notice Lady Gaga's song for this movie is actually playing in the background.
I can help.
There's actually a lot of foreshadowing in this scene. When he talks about the maximum altitude, the camera shows Phoenix and Bob. Phoenix and Bob will fail the training because they flew above the maximum altitude. When he mentions the minimum airspeed, the camera shows Payback and Fanboy. They would fail because they failed to stay on course while trying to fly fast enough. When he talks about the time on target and needing to get in and be gone in time, the camera shows Rooster, who will fail because he didn't make it in time.
This makes time your greatest adversary out.
Then it's a dogfight.
Against fifth-generation fighters.
Yeah, we'd still have a chance.
In an F-18.
It's not the plane, sir. It's the pilot.
Exactly.
A lot of people misunderstand this line from Maverick as him agreeing with Rooster, when in actuality Rooster stresses is the pilot. It is the stress that is the pilot's abilities that will win a dogfight, but Maverick's focus on a pilot is in the value of the pilot's life being preserved. And again, Bob steps in to defend Phoenix.
Yet somehow, you always manage.
This actress has a tiny role in this movie, but in this little time I really love her mannerisms in this scene. Like how she tries to look away like she thinks that will stop her tears from flowing. I've seen people do this in real life, so it's actually good acting on her part. Notice the kid drawings on the wall, way to pull on our heartstrings more by reminding us that Iceman is a family man now. Val Kilmer, the actor playing Iceman, actually had to battle throat cancer in real life. It made it to where talking has become extremely difficult for him, and they decided to work that into the script for his character.
The Navy needs Maverick. The kid needs Maverick. That's why I fought for you. That's why you're still here.
His spoken lines at the end was actually Val Kilmer. Some reports claimed it was a digital recreation, something he is planning on using for future projects, or that his son dubbed it, but Joseph Kaczynski have stated it was actually Val Kilmer's real voice, just touched up for clarity.
One last thing. Who's the better pilot? You or me?
This is a nice moment. Let's not ruin it.
Notice how after Maverick explains the game to Cyclone, instead of just chewing him out, Cyclone shows interest by asking,
Who's winning?
showing a sign that he's not quite the hard ass he portrays himself to be. Some might wonder why they invert for this part of the mission. Sure, it looks cool, but it's actually due to the plane's design and how so many parts of it is designed to help with creating or maximizing lift, which is a force on the aircraft from the bottom of the aircraft to the top of the aircraft to keep it in the air. So because of that, it can rotate the nose upwards at a higher rate than it can lower it. So this maneuver will allow them to hug the walls of the mountain better so they can get a better attack angle on the target. More foreshadowing, they show these birds getting kicked up in the beginning of the scene, and the scene ends with birds striking their aircraft, causing Phoenix and Bob to have to ditch the aircraft. After the bird strike takes out their left engine, she climbs to get altitude so that there's more room between them and the ground for them to do what they need to do to hopefully save the aircraft. And also there is a minimum safe altitude to eject to give enough time for the parachute to inflate. So starting off from a higher altitude simply gives them more time to react to the situation. Aircraft malfunctions or stalling that happens at low altitude are the most deadly because they give the pilot almost no time to react. Throughout the movie you'll notice they say things in threes. Like here she says, "Eject, eject, eject!" Or later they proclaim, "Bullseye, bullseye, bullseye!" Which is actually something the military does. I've seen a lot of reaction videos where people get relieved the moment they eject from the aircraft, but the film itself doesn't treat this moment as a moment of relief and instead cuts to Rooster looking very concerned. It's because a lot can go wrong even if you eject. Heck, in the original Top Gun, Goose dies during the ejection sequence. Possibly another reason why Rooster would be especially concerned about this. It is not until Maverick confirms that they're both okay that really we should feel relieved, and you see Rooster sigh of relief at that moment.
They're gonna be okay. Fly long enough, it'll happen. There will be others.
Fly jets long enough, something like this happens. But there will be others.
That flyover is a real maneuver, although usually not done at such low altitude, obviously for the sake of the movie, but it is called the missing man formation. In the beginning it was simply a formation with one aircraft missing representing the fallen, but later it became what you see here, a formation flying, then one pulls up into the heavens to represent the fallen leaving the formation. It's very simple, but if you see one in real life, I'm sure you'll find yourself holding back tears. It's very emotional and beautiful gesture for the fallen. Hondo doesn't look that pleased that Maverick pulls this off. He basically knew from the beginning that he would, but he knew that by doing that, he probably would end up actually going on a mission, since he has become the only one to successfully complete it, making him the only person who can lead the others, and Hondo doesn't like the risk of losing his friend in combat. I love how without a single spoken word, the scene perfectly shows that Penny doesn't like that he's going on a mission. Her expression goes from happy to dread after he tells her what's happening. But at the same time, she is supportive of him and you don't see any sign of her trying to talk him out of it.
Rooster.
Rooster looks surprised he was chosen. I think at that moment he is starting to realize that Maverick's actions must not have been against him, and Rooster is thinking he shouldn't have been so hard on him.
You give him hell!
A lot of reactions have said that they like that Hangman has matured and grown when this scene comes along and he tells Rooster to you give him hell as a pep talk. But I have to disagree. I don't think Hangman changed or matured at all. I think most people who haven't been in the military would have come to that first conclusion that his character has grown and changed, but most who have been in the military would probably recognize that there's a very clear and distinct difference between how you see and treat each other in peacetime and how you treat each other during war. In peacetime, you can have all of these rivalries, you can act like you hate each other, but during war, we're all brothers and sisters. It's actually like real siblings. You see it all the time where siblings can be at each other's throats, but the moment an outsider threatens or harms one, the other will come and protect him or her. This movie does a great job of showing that, not only with Hangman, but you saw it already in the beginning with Admiral Kane. When the screen goes black and they all thought Maverick might have died, even Admiral Kane had a sad look on his face. He looked like he was upset. But of course, when it's shown that he's alive and well, then Admiral Kane goes right back to chewing him out. And later in the mission scene, you'll see it in Cyclone. As much as he seems to dislike Maverick, when Maverick is shot down, Cyclone only cares about getting the rest of his crew home safely. And is so upset over losing one, his voice even breaks when he's responding to Rooster's desire to go back for Maverick.
Tell him there's nothing he can do for Maverick, not in a goddamn F-18.
No matter how much they might dislike each other during peacetime, they don't actually want anything actually bad to happen to them, like death or serious injury. They did a good job, even in the first Top Gun, after Goose dies. Iceman sympathizes with Maverick. When Rooster makes a hit, Hangman celebrates it, no sign of jealousy or hate there at all. When Maverick is shot down, Hangman immediately requests to go help.
Request permission to launch and fly air cover.
Negative, Spare.
And when Rooster is shot down, you can clearly see the concern in Hangman's face.
Support assets airborne. Strike package ready. Standing by for launch decision.
Sorry, just something badass about him saying send them. I love this detail of how they show him grabbing that grab handle after giving the thumbs up and salute. That is to show the shooter that his hand is off the joystick. In the catapult sequence, the flight controls are actually automated. The pilot can accidentally interfere with it if he or she touches the joystick. So they put that bar up there for the pilot to grab to show his hand is off the joystick before they shoot the aircraft off the catapult. I love that they showed that since it's not a detail most people will understand. I think Tom Cruise is the first civilian they let actually launch from the catapult. The rest of the cast members' aircraft had to take off from a conventional runway. I've read that call sign Comanche shown here isn't an actress. They initially wanted to hire her to coach an actress for the role, but ended up just putting her in the movie. So she's a real E2 controller, and you can tell that by how casually she delivers her lines. It's as if she says those things on a regular basis, because she does.
Comanche 1-1 set. Picture clean. Recommend dagger continue. Comanche, picture clean. Decision is yours. Dagger, Comanche, we're picking up 2 bandits. Single group, 2 contacts.
Bullseye, 09050, TAC southwest.
Bandits are switching course to defend the target.
Comanche,
Bandits inbound. Single group hot. Recommend dagger flow south. 1 minute to intercept.
Speaking of the E2 aircraft, the E2 Hawkeye shown in this film, otherwise known as the Mini AWACS, is the correct aircraft for this particular situation. There's a larger version of this type of aircraft known as an AWACS, or Airborne Warning and Control System. It's normally a much larger aircraft. It's a modified Boeing 707, so that requires a conventional runway to launch. The E2 Hawkeye shown here does a lot of what that does, but can be launched from an aircraft carrier, which would be more appropriate for what is showing on the film. When Rooster says, "Talk to me, Dad," the next person to speak is Maverick.
Come on, kid, you can do it.
Okay, so one nitpick I do have is that they use the word repeat over the radio twice.
Dagger 1 is hit! I repeat, Dagger 1 is hit! Maverick is down!
Dagger, you are not to engage. Repeat.
The word repeat is generally used by artillery, and it means to repeat fire on last coordinates. So since that word can trigger someone firing off artillery for safety reasons, it is never used for any other reason. Even though there's no artillery in the scene, the military's radio etiquette has these rules in place so that there's no bad habits that can arise at the worst times. The proper way to convey that you either need something verbally repeated or you are verbally repeating a statement is to say again, or I say again. So in this instance, Phoenix should have said, Dagger 1 is hit, I say again, Dagger 1 is hit. And in the second instance, it should be, Dagger, you are not to engage, I say again, do not engage. You see him packing his parachute. I'm pretty sure this is part of their training to try to hide as much evidence as you can of your presence there so that the enemy has a harder time tracking you after you've ejected from your aircraft. So he's probably wrapping it up and then making it smaller so that he can try to bury it in the snow or something so that it can't be seen from the air. At this moment, Cyclone's realizing what the big deal is with Maverick. You can actually see the pilot of this aircraft ejecting. Despite popular belief, pilots don't actually want to kill other pilots, even though they might be fighting for the other side. They definitely want to destroy the aircraft or disable the aircraft so they can't fight against them or stop them from completing their mission. But for the most part, pilots respect other pilots, even from other nations. This whole sequence at the end with Maverick and Penny in the P-51 is actually Tom Cruise flying with Jennifer Connelly in the passenger seat. Well, there you have it. Those are the Top Gun Maverick details you probably did not know. I know this has been a longer video, so if you stuck with it until the end, I really appreciate you listening to what I had to say. Now please comment below what your favorite detail is, or did I get some of these wrong, or do you have anything to add to this? Also, if you just want to tell me what you thought of Top Gun Maverick, I read all my comments, so if you have anything to say, just please let me know down in the comments. Of course, if you liked it, please hit the like button for me and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to know when I post my next video. Well, until the next time, thanks again.